Chris McMurray, and this is A Radical Journey, and we're going to take you behind the scenes. We'll meet other drivers, hear how they got into driving radicals, and what the experience is like. We'll watch in-car videos, look inside the Cup cars, get prepared for the season, and give you something fun to watch. So join us on A Radical Journey.
Why radical? We build race cars. We race iconic tracks. We set lap records. We build friendships.
3, 4.
We create champions. We make racers.
Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Sebring International Raceway. The anticipation of this season has built to this moment. It's time to go qualifying for round one of the 2024 Radical Cup North America Series. Drivers in pit lane awaiting the instructions from Bo Barfield up in race control. A number of new teams here this weekend and joining the championship. None other, of course, than Graham Rahal Performance joining the championship after becoming a dealer last year and fielding a very, very strong contingent of young guns. Number of more storied Radical Cup competitors back with us in 2024 as well. This should be thrilling to watch. Yesterday, it was quite a tough battle between a number of drivers for some bragging rights in the practice sessions as the green flag flies here at Sebring. And it's a 25-minute qualifying session. It was Chip Romer, an SCCA runoffs winner, multi-time runoff winner, who's converted into spec racing in the Radical Cup and saying that he was amazingly impressed with the championship. And Chip pipping his teammate John Field, who of course is our reigning Platinum Class champion. Clint Field joins his father in the Platinum class. Look out too for Louis Schreiber, who's won a couple of races before in the SR10 machines. And Greg Gorski, who was so impressive in the Portimao World Finals at the end of last year, stepping up to the SR10 from what has been his home in the 1500 class. And Greg Gorski had a heat race win, finished second in the World Finals. It'll be interesting to see him come to grips a little more with this SR10 machinery with those strong results under his belt. David Albans also stepped up, joining Jim Booth. Scott Wagner. Kevin Poitras is back as well from Canada. And the other Canadian in the field, disaster for him yesterday, a turbo failure for Wayne Williams. Was very, very quick for S's Racing on Thursday's practice. Missed most of yesterday, but look out for the 57 machine of Wayne Williams. He came on strong at the end of last year's season. A number of podium positions. I wouldn't be surprised to see the 57 right in the thick of it in terms of the Platinum class. It was Nick D'Orlando for Graham Rahal Performance that set the pace from Danny Dashelski yesterday in the final practice in Pro 1500. Dashelski, of course, the runner-up in last year's championship. Great to see him return And he is doing some double duty for Raceway this year, also campaigning a Mercedes GT4 car. Jack Yang was extremely impressive in the number 21 for Group A. And Jack, who also races in the Haggerty Radical Cup United Kingdom Series, has got plenty of miles under his belt around Sebring after doing an extensive testing program. But we'll see what he'll do. Jordan Missig returns to the series after some tremendous campaigns in what was known as the Road to Indy and now the USF programs. And great to see Jordan back in a Radical looking for an elusive championship. He's finished runner-up a number of times. And was very, very impressive in his early days out of karts and in the Radicals, and that prepared him for some great results in USF. And now he's back to prove himself against the likes of Evan Slater, Matt Romer, who's also joining his father this year, Mike Anzaldi, of course, a front runner, Austin Riley, a former champion, the Pro 1340 champion, Spencer Schmidt, Sam Schmidt's son, has joined the series and is racing for Radical Northwest. And seemed pretty cool, calm and collected last night at dinner, getting some advice from Dad. And it'll be interesting to see how Spencer goes. Corey Nouveau, another one to watch in Pro 1500. Along with the Rule Venkatesh, also out of Radical Northwest. Drew Altman, one of the locals. David Flint, Ben Blander is one of the Pro 1340 competitors to look out for. He was a little bit lonely down the order in Pro 1340 yesterday, but he's done a lot of miles in various race cars, and I wouldn't be surprised if Ben Blander finds a bit more pace in this morning's session. So, we're just starting our first flyers. All intrigued to see who lays down the gauntlet first. Pro 1340, of course, I think the big battle will be between Chris McMurray, who was runner-up in the championship last year, and Seth Bacon was runner-up. Chris McMurray was certainly a front-runner and a multi-time race winner. And it will be interesting to see how those guys go. For Crown Concepts out of Arizona. But the big news perhaps is two young guns from Ricebek. Sulio Almeida and Maya Dionaire. Maya only 14 years of age, and Sulio coming from sim racing and doing a lot of driver coaching through the iRacing platform and other simulators. And he's an expert behind the wheel. This is really, though, his first big test in terms of a downforce prototype championship. Has done some other real-world racing in Canada, but stepping up to the Radical Cup for this year. And look out for the number 3. The Brazilian will certainly be one to watch. We mentioned Ben Blander. Brad Satuka, also one to watch. Douglas George, Kenny Nail. So, no issues so far. Not too many during the practice sessions. A big accident for Louis Schreiber about a week ago. And the Wisco racing teams had a lot of work to do to re-prepare the 111 machine. But really that has been the only drama. A small mishap for Danny Dashelski as well in practice. And he was just saying the car got the better of him between turn 10 and 11. But all the teams working diligently to prepare these cars in the off-season. And a lot of new cars in the field as well. So perhaps as expected, it's John Field with a 203.02. So a 2:03 flat for John Field in his first flyer. Chip Roma right there, though, only 1/10 of a second behind Clint Field, within 7/10 of his father. And as expected, Wayne Williams, fourth fastest on his first flyer from Louis Schreiber and Jim Booth. That's the top 6 in the Platinum class so far. Looking now for the 1500s, and it's Evan Slater, who was showing some impressive pace as well in the early laps of yesterday's afternoon session. So Slater for Wisco Racing, another newcomer to the series. He sets a strong time, a 2:08.8, better than Jordan Missig and Nick D'Orlando in the 2 Graham Rahal performance cars. Danny Dashelski rounds out the top 4. Matt Roma is 5th fastest, and Jack Yang 6th in class at the moment. So some of the faster drivers from last year getting relegated a little bit. The pace has certainly increased in this championship year on year, and the competition is stronger than ever. Chris McMurray isn't fastest. In Pro 1340, it's Maya Dionair, the young kid who resides in Canada, has just set a 2:12.7, and Maya doing a really good job in his debut. It's a cool, calm and collected Carter who stepped up to cars and had to elect whether he was going to go down the path of open wheel or prototype. Selected to join the Radical Cup Championship for the exposure in front of the IndyCar crowds, but also because it was going to give him 2 different pathways. One, to continue on a prototype path, or get into GT cars and continue on a sports car career, or still prepare him for open wheelers in years to come. And the SR3 platform, just a tremendous way to get into motorsport and hone the craft. Seth Bacon has just pipped him with a 2:12.5. So we haven't seen perhaps an indicative time, or now we have from Chris McMurray a 2:12.1. So McMurray to the top of the charts in Pro 1340. Would you believe that's only good enough at 19th fastest overall? Of course, 3 races in the Radical Cup North America Championship. John Field at 2:01.6. We saw him get into the 2:01s in practice. We're wondering whether he'll break the 2-minute mark in the SR10, the 435 brake horsepower, 4-cylinder Ford turbocharged engine, completely rebuilt by Radical. And Clint Field, second fastest from Chip Roma. Greg Gorski's rocketed up the order. So has Kevin Poitras, relegating Wayne Williams to 6th on the grid if things stay as they are. Louis Schreiber with plenty of work to do. So too for Mr. McDonald's Jim Booth. Scott Wagner, another one with work to do. Evan Slater, still fastest in Pro 1500. And 2:08.1 is the time to beat. And it is. Nick D'Orlando now, 2:76. Jordan Missig, 2:79. So the GRP cars in their debut, straight to the top of the charts yet again. Of course, some IndyCar experience on that team. And having the guidance of Graham Rahal has so far been very, very good for Nick D'Orlando and Jordan Missig. Danny Dashelski with a little bit of work to do for Raceway. He, of course, made the transition to the Canadian team after campaigning with Wisco Racing last year. Spencer Smith, very, very impressive so far. 7th fastest in the highly competitive Pro 1500 class. Just hearing a little bit of radio chatter as we see the white flag there indicating a slow-moving vehicle on track out of turn 7. And that has now been cleared. Drew Altman coming past the commentary box, as does Chip Roma. He has not improved. And down the pit lane trundles Clintfield. So second fastest at the moment in the Platinum class as Louis Schreiber does another tour. It was a slow one, a 2:05.4. Wayne Williams also lapping in the 2:05s. So perhaps that slow-moving vehicle or a little bit of commotion out there just causing, as we've seen, Austin Riley off the track just before the Corvette bridge. So that's out of turn 5, and Bo Barfield in yesterday's briefing making note of that corner for one that often catches drivers out. A left-hander where the rear of the car is particularly loaded up. You only really need to hit a bump or just catch the curb a little bit too much and the car will get spat out. Hopefully not towards the bridge or the barriers. So Nick D'Orlando still the benchmark in Pro 1500. And in 1340, Maya Dionair has found more pace. Jack Yang goes quicker. Jack Yang now the quickest in Pro 1500 for Group A Racing. Jack Yang now eclipsed. It was China on top. Now it's back with the US of A and Danny Dashelski for Ricebeck at 2:07.1. So the Hankook tyres coming in. Perhaps a little bit of heat helping that rubber stick. The drivers finding a bit of room around this racetrack. And the track conditions good. It's a little bit cooler here this morning. Overcast in what has otherwise been a very sunny Sebring this week. Maya Dionair giving Chris McMurray perhaps some raised eyebrows. And if you just joined us before the broadcast started, you would have seen the ad for Chris McMurray's A Radical Journey. It's a mini-series with multiple parts presented by Racer Magazine. And you can follow along Chris throughout the season. He's going to be taking you behind the scenes of the Radical Cup, and for that matter, Radical Racing and the cars in general, and explaining things like how you can get involved in Radical, whether it's at the Country Club SCCA or out here in the National Series. A little bit about the car, the techniques, why it's such a good training tool, and why so many people, young and old, have come through the ranks of Radical and gone on to do bigger and better things. Of course, we're so proud of all sorts of drivers from the UK and the USA. George Kurtz coming up through the ranks of Radical Racing. Of course, he won Le Mans last year in LMP2. And we just had Toby Sowry win a race alongside George Kurtz, for that matter, in the Asia Le Mans Series. And Sowry won a world championship in Radical back in Las Vegas. Right. We'll pick up the order. There's lots of green green lap times. So Greg Gorski's now third fastest. Gorski's found pace for Wisco Racing, the 24 machine. That's more to be expected after his World Championship performance at Portimao. Chip Roma relegated to fourth fastest at the moment from Louis Schreiber, Wayne Williams. Scott Wagner, Kevin Poitras, Jim Booth, David Albin. So the top 10, all Platinum class cars. Those cars stretching their legs perhaps a little bit more around Sebring. It's Nick D'Orlando who's back on top for Graham Rahal Performance. A 2.8.1. John Field still sets the pace overall with a 2.016. Seems to be enough at the moment. He's got 0.6 of a second to his son. Clint Field's got to be one of the most casual racers out there, just enjoys his motorsport so much, as does his father. But somehow Clint does it even in more relaxed way. Chris McMurray has found something. So he's just gone to the top of Pro 1340. Could he get the McDonald's Pole Award? A 2.11.4 for Chris McMurray. Maya Dionair, 0.2, less than 0.2 in it. Sulio Almeida, not much in it either. He's at a 2.11.7. So putting everything he's learned into practice. He was a professional piano player, believe it or not, before turning to motorsport, sim racing and coaching, and now professional driving. He was saying that the piano learning music put him in good stead for learning all of the elements of race car driving, particularly the braking techniques that are ever so important. There's a great shot of the cars coming through 14, 15 and 16. And a couple of cars using a little bit of tarmac there to the left-hand side as they turn in to 16. It's important to keep the car tidy around the turn 16 left-hander. Really optimize that entry into turn 16 proper. Some drivers doing it a little bit better than others. So things have just settled down a bit, really. Lap times haven't got particularly faster. Just looking down pit lane, a number of drivers in. D'Orlando is rolling back through pit lane. It looks like he's going back out, perhaps. And Ben Blander also in pit lane, looking pretty calm and casual. But for the most part, pit lane is empty. All cars out on track. John Field still leads the way. Only 4 laps completed, so did the job efficiently, which is an important thing to remember. Only 2 sets of dry condition rubber slick Hankook tyres from qualifying. The drivers have to manage those sets. Now they can mix it up. They don't have to use the set in its entirety. They can mix tyres in, perhaps use the inside tyres from one set. In fact, they actually don't even have to have 2 sets. It could be just 8 tyres. They could elect to have more front rubber than rear if they wanted to. But 8 tyres to manage from qualifying, and certainly for the high energy SR10 machines, very, very important. that you don't consume all of that rubber in qualifying and leave yourself something for these 3 40-minute races, as Maya Dionair is in the 244 machine. And speaking of McDonald's, he's loving it, loving his debut in the championship. Looks very, very calm, giving the thumbs up to the crew members down on pit lane. It's just resetting of the tyre pressures. That's about all the teams can do, quite frankly. And perhaps deciding that P2 is sufficient with 8 laps on his tyres. He's had a couple of runs at it. His fastest was in lap 4. And he hasn't found additional pace. So the cars are effectively under Parc Fermé conditions during the qualifying session. It's not as though you can do a wing change or anything like that. So the 24 cock oil machine of Greg Gorski comes down the lane. 4th fastest, and it's Louis Schreiber who's 3rd fastest. And that's quite impressive for Wisco Racing. It's been a hard slog to the week for them. And Louis Schreiber, after coming unglued in turn 7 in what was a bit of just a mishap, final lap of the day, testing last weekend, and got on the binders a little too hard in turn 7, and the car snapped on him. Didn't get an opportunity to even go down the escape road. It was straight into the wall, and 3 corners knocked off that car. The factory back in England doing an amazing job to air freight a whole lot of parts in very, very promptly early in the week. The team doing an even more amazing job to get that car back going, and everyone working in concert down at Wisco Racing to make things happen for Louis Schreiber, and he's repaid them with 3rd fastest in the Platinum class from John Field, Clint Field. Chip Roma, what an amazing debut he's having, 5th fastest. Wayne Williams is right there as well, so this is going to be an ultra competitive Platinum class for this season. And we can expect, I think, all those drivers at all the rounds. The checker flag is out, so it's one more tour for the drivers left on track. We'll see if anyone can improve their positions. It's Dashelski, who is fastest in Pro 1500, as he often was last year, and he is done for this morning's session. It's a 2:06.9. That is the time to beat, and it's been beaten by Nick D'Orlando as the checker flag flies. He's taken pole position in the Pro 1500 class with a 2:06.4. So half a second up. Louis Schreiber goes through. Wayne Williams can't eclipse Chip Roma. He'll start from 6 on the grid. We'll wait and see who else is out there. Mike Ansaldi hasn't been able to better his time. Chris McMurray has, though. McMurray has finished with a 2:11.1. We'll see if anyone else has any answers. David Albon went past. Scott Wagner has just taken the checker. Jim Booth as well. David Albon has got ahead of Scott Wagner. He'll start from 8th on the grid. Jordan Missick is slotting into 3rd place, it looks like, starting behind Nick D'Orlando. We'll see how that plays out in race 1. Of course, qualifying only setting the grid for race 1 here at 11:25, and that'll be live streamed as well. Danny Dashelski in a Graham Rahal performance sandwich. Evan Slater, what an outstanding job he did. 4th fastest in Pro 1500 from Jack Yang. Another impressive performance for him. Matt Roma as well. Austin Riley, Spencer Schmidt. And again, the time's very, very close. And Pro 1340, Chris McMurray, the number 2 for Crown Concepts, doing the job provisionally, of course. The cars have to roll through tech. But Mayor Daenair, with almost taking a pole in his first race. We'll see what happens as that story unravels throughout the championship. Seth Bacon, very, very quick as well. Julio Almeida, also right up there. And Ben Blander, too. So, that was qualifying for race 1 of the 2024 Radical Cup North America Series. We thank all of our partners, McDonald's, HRX, Hankook, Sunoco Racing Radios, Motul, and USAC. We'll be back here a little bit later on. 11:25 is when race 1 starts. The broadcast will pick up a little bit earlier than that. And then later this afternoon, race 2 will start at 4:20. So a big day of action from the Radical Cup North America Series from Sebring. I'm Tom Drewer, and we'll catch you a little bit later on. Join us for race 1 and 2 of the Radical Cup North America from Sebring later today.